Good morning and welcome to the Core Connection. I'm Mira Rubin here with you on Enlightened World Network. And today's topic is the comforts of routine. Routine can be something that gives us stability and anchoring, and its less than positive side, it can be deadening and robotic, but it does have its good features too. So we're going to explore those today. And before we get started, let's take a minute or two to get present. Let's take a deep breath in through your nose and hold it. And imagine clean, crisp oxygen flooding into your lungs, flowing into your bloodstream, nourishing all your cells, all your organs, bringing vital life energy to your body and being. And as you exhale, exhale any tension, stress, negativity, fatigue. And now let's take another deep breath in through your nose and hold it. And this time, imagine brilliant, bright light lighting you up from the inside out, illuminating and electrifying all your molecules, your electrons, lighting up your cells, creating this brilliant beam of light coming out from your heart into the world. And as you exhale, exhale any remaining tension, stress, negativity, fatigue. And now let's just gently press our palms together. Softly, 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 rub your fingers against your palms to feel the deliciousness of that sensation, like to really feel it and bring yourself present to this remarkable physical form that's the vehicle through which you experience life. So welcome, welcome, welcome. Good morning, Rosalind. Happy Friday to you as well. And it's great to be here with you. Thank you so much for joining us, and for everybody else who's joining us, welcome. And it's great to have you here as well. And so we're talking about the comfort of routine. So routine is such a cool, it's a cool topic when we look at the pluses and minuses, right? Like we can be so steeped in routine that we kind of go through our lives robotically, just doing all the routines and not really being present. And yet at other times, when we're experiencing disruption, uncertainty, even feeling, when we're feeling kind of adrift, then at those times, routine can be a salvation in a way, because it can get us in action to be in motion. And the being in emotion might be helping us to move through depression or anxiety or fear. When we have certain patterns, they allow us to ground sometimes. If we're allowing ourselves to be present to those patterns, and even sometimes if we're not, if we're facing challenges, to just be doing something that is a routine can give us a sense of stability that can then carry over and move us from potentially a negative state into a more resourceful one. So I'm wondering what kind of experience you have regarding routine. Like for me, this morning meeting is part of my weekday routine, and it's a commitment that I have that I get to rally for. Like last night, I didn't sleep all that well, and woke up really exhausted this morning. And if I didn't have this commitment, so maybe it's not just routines, but it's commitments as well. If I didn't have this commitment, I probably would have stayed in bed. And so having this routine rousted me up, invited me to rally, to be able to be here with you. And so that is a really powerfully positive thing for me to be moving me out of one state into another. So maybe we're not just talking about routine, but we're talking about commitments to others too. So Rosalind, oh my gosh, to your point, our pets like routine. 100%, 100%. So do children. And I think, like there's a continuity that makes for a feeling of safety, and disrupting those routines can be feeling really, really disruptive. Kimberly says, I like this topic. I'm thrilled. I'm delighted to know that, Kimberly. Great. So my cat for sure has routines, and they're goofy routines. Like she needs me to pet her at a certain place. Like we will walk to the petting post every morning, or a couple times during the day. She will lead me over to the petting post, and I pet her vigorously and love her up, and then she goes and eats. And this morning I didn't get to do that with her. And she is very, very much an animal of habit, a creature of habit for sure. And so I guess when I'm talking about routine, I am also talking a little bit about habits. Like part of my morning routine usually is get up, make the bed, and go and do other stuff, take care of other things. And sometimes when I break that routine, of all the morning things that I normally do, then I feel a little bit disrupted. And so it's interesting, like today, especially, I'm just really grateful for the routine and the commitment of being here with you, because it got me out of my way. And so it makes sense to me that there are commitments and routines that we can create for ourselves that are life affirming. And so, this is interesting. I do not know a lot about Montessori, the Montessori method. I know it's pretty remarkable. And I was speaking with a client yesterday who is a Montessori teacher, instructor. And we were talking about routine and how kids really benefit from having routine. I don't think kids are the only ones, because there is a comfort. There is a comfort in knowing, okay, now I do this, like this is the structure. It's a structure within which to be able to live. Now, the thing is that we can become a slave to routine. And when that happens, then we kind of allow ourselves to get deadened, or to be dead or robotic in the fulfillment of these routines. We can easily, maybe too easily, use a routine as an excuse to not be present. I guess different people have different thresholds for routine. Like if I had to do exactly the same thing every day, throughout the different times of the day, it would make me crazy. There's no way that I would be able to do that, because I do need variety, and having certain anchors for portions of the day, or certain contexts to be able to do certain things. Like for me, I see my clients Monday, Tuesdays, Wednesdays mostly. And that provides me some level of structure, which is really, really valuable to me. And then I have a lot more flexibility on Thursdays and Fridays, and the weekends, of course. But like I have enough variety. I guess we all get to find what our sweet spot is in terms of routine and variety. So routine doesn't necessarily mean predictability because, so for example, for me with my clients, there's always something new popping up. There's always something stimulating and engaging that pops up. So there's variety there. But if I had to do, like, if I'm not a temperament that would do well, for instance, in like a factory work kind of environment where you just do the same thing over and over. Literally, I think it would drive me out of my mind. Some people, I imagine, that can be soothing, perhaps, to be able to get into the rhythm of something and to be able to do something that is repetitive and predictable. That can be very comforting for some of us. And the interesting thing, it's, well, there's so many interesting things, right? But with COVID was initially a profound disruption of the standard routines of life, right? Our modes of interaction, our social patterns of engagement, all kinds of things were tremendously disrupted, all kinds of routines. And then we got into a routine or a pattern of wearing masks and isolating more and keeping distance. And now as things are kind of wrapping up a bit, as my inclination is to say, as things are returning more to normal, I think that this is also a disruption. Like, a lot of people are having anxiety about re-entering society. And, I use the word normal. And the fact is we developed a new norm, didn't we? The norm of social distancing, the norm of staying home more, of being more socially isolated, right? And so now what is it to come back into society? What is this new norm that's developing? So there's been so much social disruption. Good morning, Bernadette. Happy April Fool's Day. Bernadette says, happy April and don't be a fool today, LOL. Yes, happy April all. And I don't know, I wonder if anybody knows the origin of April Fool's Day. I don't. That might be an interesting thing to see. Dido, I don't know if you're here with us this morning, but you're always good for these things. If you are, I'd be appreciative if you could find out what's the origin of April Fool's Day. So Rosalind says, I'm looking forward to doing something different at work. I applied for a new job and ranked number 3. I'm not sure how many applied, but I'm hoping to interview and have a different job within the same organization. Good for you, Rosalind. I think, having some variety is for some people, having variety is a really essential thing. For other people, not so much, so we're built differently in terms of our needs, but good for you to be expanding within the organization. I wish you great success with that. And so Bernadette says reintegration is fearful. So first, I'm going to encourage you to restate that. The thought of reintegration, I feel fear at the thought of reintegration into society, coming out of our isolation. I think, Bernadette, you are absolutely not alone in experiencing fear and or anxiety about reintegrating into into society, because we have been, for the past 2 years, we have been enculturated to be afraid of each other, right? To be afraid of social interaction, to be afraid that if we go out, we're going to, suffer dire health consequences, that that we're very much at risk, that other people pose a risk to us, so that there's been a deeply enculturated alienation from other people and from the presumed safety that we used to operate under, right? And Rosalind says, replying to Bernadette, after being in prison, ? So that's an interesting thing, Rosalind. I'm quite certain that folks who have come out of prison have many challenges reintegrating. And in a way, you can imagine that we, through our isolation, have been in a socially imposed prison of one sort or another, right? And the routines of isolation, of distancing, of masking, of just caution, and I'm going to say probably more than caution, fear about engagement with others. So Bernadette says, prison of my four walls. Exactly. We have been enculturated to be creating our own prison, right? And really the biggest prison is the prison of the mind. And because we have been conditioned to be focused on danger and safety, and what safety looks like, and how safety looks like being in our own four walls and being separate and separated from one another. It's a big deal to create a new, or to overcome those emotional and psychological barriers, right? And so the things that we used to take for granted, the things that maybe used to be a routine, we've developed a lot of new routines, right? And this conversation today started out with talking about the comfort of routine, particularly when we are faced with dangers, when we're faced with what might be perceived as threats, then routine offers at least an illusion of security in some ways. And I think it can be too easy to become dependent upon those routines that aren't necessarily the most beneficial to us too. So, like growing up, for most of my growing up, my dad would have a drink with dinner. And I don't know if it was always one drink. And, it wasn't always the most positive routine, because he would get less than happy, like he would be kind of angry or aggressive, with that drink. And so, but that was the routine. It was a routine. And sometimes we do become prisoners of our own routines, where they just become habits that own us, rather than a tool that we are employing to support ourselves in a positive way. So it's interesting. I generally, I said, one of my routines in the morning has been typically, Bernadette says, liquid courage about a drink. Yes, well, yes. And for a while there, I was having such trouble with sleeping that the way that I could enable myself to sleep was to drink before I went to bed. So I'd have a drink before I'd go to bed so that it would knock me out, kind of. And while that was a routine that that had we can say it was a mixed bag, right? Because certainly the alcohol wasn't the best thing for my system, but it enabled me to sleep. Was it a restful sleep? No, but at least I could sleep. And then it just became a routine, and it wasn't really life affirming. I didn't feel great when I woke up. I managed to sleep, but it wasn't a restful sleep. And I knew it wasn't great for my body. So that kind of routine, for a while, I kind of locked myself into that prison of my mind, like that this was a pattern that was helpful but hurtful, and all kinds of things around that. And eventually I just said, the heck with this, and fortunately have found other more healthful means to be able to sleep better. So routine in and of its own, I guess, is relatively benign, but it's a matter of what we bring to those routines. Do we bring consciousness? Do we bring awareness to those routines? Do we allow them to be a way to ground ourselves, to presence ourselves, and therefore, maybe create ease in ourselves, maybe create expansiveness, maybe allow us to move into a new state, or are we fulfilling those routines in a robotic way, where we're separating ourselves from ourselves, or where we're using the routine as a way to not be present? I was going to say that, with this making of the bed kind of thing, I do notice that when I make my bed, as goofy as this might sound, I notice that when I make my bed, I feel a greater ease. And it may be that it's because that was something that was deeply patterned in me as a kid growing up, is get up and make your bed. And so maybe there's some kind of old psychological pattern that's behind that, and the ease that it brings for me. But it feels neater. It feels more ordered. And it's interesting because in many ways, I rebel against order, but having some kind of structure. And as we've been saying, we all have different thresholds for what that structure might look like, but or how rigorous that structure needs to be. But having some kind of structure, it provides its own reward, and so Kimberly says, I love starting my day off with you and move into the day and flow into the day more positive. Thank you for that, Kimberly. Thank you. I love starting the day with you guys. It is a really powerfully beneficial opportunity for me. I'm so grateful. So Bernadette says, making my bed makes me feel more organized, right? Isn't that the case? So, and it's a funny thing, but it makes me feel like, okay, I'm going in I don't know, organized direction, grounded, whatever it is. It's really interesting. So Rosalind says, how does ritual play into routine? Are those two different things? Well, I think they can be the same, and I think they can be different. You know, when we think about ritual, or when I think about ritual, I think about it as relating to presence. You know, that ritual is something that allows us to focus our attention. It's a practice through which we focus our attention and presence ourselves. And that's kind of what I'm talking about in terms of the upside of routine. Ritual doesn't have to be something that's practiced regularly. Routine is something that's, I guess, more bounded by repetition. But I know that it's interesting for folks that have OCD, obsessive compulsive disorder. They might have certain rituals that they need to perform in order to enable themselves to do something. Like you might have to knock 5 times on a door before they open it, or I'm just making that up, but that kind of ritual, I think that's in a different category. That's an extreme example of when routine or ritual or routine starts owning us, and where we become a slave to that kind of pattern. And and then you can go into superstition, like ball players often have some really interesting rituals that are part of their performance in their profession, and that's an interesting thing too. Maybe it's, I could be taking the whole bed making thing to a level of superstition too, where, if I don't make my bed, then such and such and such is going to happen, or I'm not going to have as positive a day. We can take all these things to extreme, and I guess that's where we're looking at the presence that we bring to these routines that we may have. So Kimberly says, open mind, open heart for positive opportunities. I love it. And I think that we can find routines that are enlivening and engage in those as long as they remain enlivening. Oh my gosh. So Bernadette, I missed your comment here. My routine in the morning is to open my eyes and make my bladder happier. I missed that one. Yes, that's a morning routine too, is visiting the porcelain throne, right? Kimberly says, I feel the same way about the bed, LOL. So lots of us were probably raised by starting the day by making your bed, or, when you get out of the bed, the first thing you do is make it. It does ground me into the day. And actually, I think somebody, I don't know who it was, but it was probably one of the peak performance people, was talking about completing things. And so the ritual of making the bed, or the routine of making the bed, is kind of ending the sleep cycle, like ending the sleep cycle and officially starting the day. So it's creating this transition that is physical, because you're actually making the bed, and it's like, okay, made the bed, ready to start the day. So it's an interesting psychological foil or device that we can use to be setting ourselves up for the start of the day. Who would think that making a bed could have such an important implication for us? Anyway, that's it for today and for this week, given that it's Friday, and happy April Fool's Day. May we all, the Fool in the tarot deck is a really interesting card. We think of a fool as somebody that is unwise. We should have looked it up. But anyway, the fool in the tarot deck, at least the way that I think about it, is that the fool is the person or the consciousness that's open to all possibility without preconception. And may we have the joy and wonder of the beginner's mind. That's what I think of as the fool. And so let's have that be our celebration today. Love to all of you, and have a great weekend. I'm Mira Rubin. This is the Core Connection, and I go live here each weekday morning at 9 a.m. Eastern on the Enlightened World Network Facebook page. And please, please check out the other awesome programming on Enlightened World Network, Enlightened World Living, EWN One with the Earth. And until next time, I really hope to see you back here again soon, maybe as soon as Monday. So until then, so